peers, from your teachers. So all these require a helping hand holding. Because why? Because the brain is still not mature. The brain is not mature, and a prefrontal cortex, which actually controls our emotion and reward seeking behavior, only matures in the late 20s. So until that time, the adolescent is very emotionally labile, and hence hand holding is required. So we expect parents to understand these changes and help the adolescent to navigate the waters of these transitions. Sometimes parents are knowledgeable enough and they are fit enough, but sometimes they are not. Because we also know sometimes parents may have their own challenges. So that is the time when doctor's role comes in to handhold not only the adolescent, but also the parent and also the teachers to successfully navigate the waters of adolescence. I hope I'm clear enough. If you have any more questions on this, I could add on.
Fine, ma'am. Ma'am, but just one more question. Like, okay, but the differences arises while they are being reared. Like, how can that be minimized?
Oh, yes, that was the part of your question. That's a very important question, which is especially in the Indian context, I would say. And we all are very well aware of the fact that how there is gender discrimination, and culturally, that is what is happening. So how do we deal with this? Now, I would say if you're looking at the brain development, I'm talking about the science behind it. If you're looking at the brain development, there is no difference between boys and girls, no difference at all. But when you're talking about the physical development, we know it's a biological process, yes, and girls attain menarche, boys have nocturnal emission. So these are the changes which we should be well aware about, and this will in fact tell us how to educate the different sexes in a different manner about their health issues. Coming to the psychosocial changes, I think this is the crux of the matter. What I want to tell here is, we as adolescent health professionals and health educators need to break the gender stereotyping. We judge, we form a lot of judgment. So she's a girl, she should not go out in the night, she should be very careful about how she behaves. Okay, engineering is not a career for her. Okay, maybe, she should become a teacher or maybe even a doctor. So these are the gender stereotyping which is clouding the vision of gender equality as far as rearing goes. Now, we do understand that each sex has their own role, and parents are concerned about safety of both the sexes, and more so of the girls, with the current, the existing situation in the country. But at the same time, I feel when the parents express their need to ensure security, they must also give reasons. So there should be a reasoning about why a girl should come back in time, and how should a girl take care of herself in spite of the various challenges. Having talked about girls, I must mention about boys also. So there's a lot of stereotyping about boys, like boys don't cry. And these are the boys whose emotions are repressed when they grow older, because all the time we say boys do not cry. Where is the outlet for their emotions? And then these emotions come out in a violent way, because boys have never been told how should they be negotiating the difficult emotions. So suppress it. You're a boy, you can show your weakness. Why is that? So I think as parents, we need to break the stereotyping and treat both the sexes as equal, yet ensure safety of both the sexes. I'll just end this question by just mentioning about early bloomers in girls and late bloomers in boys. So what are early bloomers? Early bloomers are those girls who attain their puberty early. So what we usually say for the age of puberty is around 10 to 12 years, but we also know some of the girls are attaining puberty much more earlier nowadays. And these are the girls who feel very conscious of their body. They also develop a sexual drive because of the hormonal changes, and they are at risk of body image problems and also sometimes sexual abuse. So these children need special support. Similarly, for the boys who are late bloomers, who develop their beards much later, or who develop their muscle and have a peak height velocity much later, are actually develop a low self-esteem. They are always looked down upon. In fact, they're also bullied. So both early bloomer girls and late bloomer boys need special attention from both the health professional and also the parent.
Yes, ma'am. Very nicely explained. Yeah. So the last point has to be definitely followed, that for girls, early bloomers, and for boys, late bloomers, they should be paid special attention. Yes, ma'am. Moving on to the next question. What is the right way to communicate with them, with these adolescents? If we talk to them very softly, so they take it for granted. And if we are harsh, they don't want to talk to us. They don't get interested. So how should a parent ideally should communicate to a child or an adolescent?
Seema, I'll just ask you one question. If I was very harsh with you, would you feel like talking to me?
No, ma'am.
Definitely not. Yes. And I told you for the adolescent.
But ma'am, one thing. So some parents now, they talk so softly, like as if they are pampering them. So the children, whenever some other parent, like two parents are talking with their children, so that makes a difference, ma'am. One is talking in a simple way and one is talking in a pampered and one is very harsh. So how should basically, like, and when suppose a parent tell them harshly, then they don't want to accept them because they have been in a habit of listening them in a soft voice.
Right. So I would say, take the middle path and what we call as assertive communication,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
That is what all parents, and in fact, I think everybody should follow assertive communication. So what is assertive communication? In simple words, it is when you're communicating, you're respecting your rights and you're respecting the other person's rights. So let me tell you an example. I am standing in a queue, right, for my Aadhaar card, and somebody from behind comes and breaks the queue and stands in front of me. I'm very, very angry that I have left my clinic and I'm here and this person has broken the queue. So what do? I take out a safety pin from my purse and I poke it into his back. So what kind of communication is this? This is aggressive communication. Or in other words, what you said, this is a harsh communication. So what does this person do? He looks back at me and gives me a tight slap. So it is a total loss situation for me and a loss situation. And then we have, a big fight and everybody joins and, I don't get my Aadhaar card and neither does he, right? So this is aggressive communication. The second is he breaks the queue. He's there in front of me and I keep cursing him. Why did he break the queue? This is not the way to behave. But I don't say anything because I feel if I say something, I will create a racket. So I keep quiet. But what happens when I am saying all and cursing him, I start getting a headache. I start getting a stomach ache because the stress is building up. It's like a pressure cooker situation where the vent is totally blocked. So I get so much of stomach ache, then I say, no, I'm going to come again for my Aadhaar card. And then I just leave the queue and go away. Okay. So again, it is a loss situation as far as I'm concerned, because I had a passive communication. The third state is assertive communication. So what do I do now? I say, excuse me, sir. And I also point to the person who's standing behind me. And I'll say, even my friend has been standing in the queue for a long time, sir. And we are eagerly waiting for our Aadhaar card. It would be very nice if you could take your place in the queue. And the friend who's behind me also says, yes, sir, we request you to go back. And the person who's in front also turns and said, who's this talking so politely? They also join. And there's unity in strengths. By your assertive communication, you have actually convinced this person to go back, right? So what did I do here? I expressed myself. I took care of my rights. I took care of the other person's right also. Having said this, I must also tell you about one more communication style, which is passive aggressive, which many times mothers and fathers do it. And what is this style of communication? So I will not talk to you for 3 days because you came late today. Now, what has happened is you're not talking to the person, you're not talking to the adolescent. And the adolescent, it's a lockdown time. He's the only person, you're the only person whom he has to talk to. Imagine you tell the adolescent you went out to buy grocery, you didn't come back in time, and that is why I'm very angry with you and I'm not going to talk to you. Did you ask the adolescent what happened? Why was he late? But just because he broke the rule, you just say, I'm not going to talk to you for 3 days. That is heartbreak for the adolescent. That is passive aggressive. And when you come after 3 days, you say, अच्छा अब तो बताओ क्या हुआ था, तुम क्यों लेट हो गए थे? ओ मम्मी मैं साइकिल पे गया था, मेरा साइकिल पंचर हो गया और फिर मैं गिर भी गया नीचे और इसलिए लेट हो गया. So, so before you do a passive aggressive type of a communication, and for that matter, even aggressive or passive, you must kind of find out what is really the problem. So I would recommend all parents to follow assertive communication. And this is very closely linked to your parenting style. Assertive communication is the hallmark of authoritative parenting style, where you respond, your response is high, and also your control on the adolescent is high. So the adolescent knows exactly why should he behave in a particular manner. Authoritarian is that you push, you're more aggressive. You say, this is the way you have to behave. You have to come back at 6 o'clock every day. And if you don't come back, you will be beaten up. This is authoritarian, the Hitler style. The passive is what you were telling me. Bete tum kabhi bhi aa jao. It's all right. I'm always here for you. Where are the rules? These are the spoiled brat children. While the aggressive are the one who would probably become aggressive themselves later, or they may get so scared that they become very anxious personalities. There's another type of parenting, which is neglected parenting, where the parent doesn't even know what's happening to the child. In many families where you have very high profile parents and the child is looked after by caretakers, this is the case. So coming back to communication, having said that, this communication really, kind of underlines your parenting style, and research has shown that authoritative parenting is a very strong protective factor against all high-risk behavior. And when we start talking to the adolescent, remember, don't give long lectures, don't preach, they hate it. And when you start talking with them, not more than 10 sentences at a time, start counting. If you think you're going to talk 100 sentences, let me tell you, after 10 sentences, they tune off. They're not going to listen to you. Keep it short and simple. Follow the KISS rule. That is what we say. What you don't have to do is derogatory language. And the second is comparisons. Today, if my husband was to compare me with the neighboring wife and say, oh, she makes such fantastic dishes, how angry I would get. And imagine an adolescent, his limbic system is on a high, he doesn't have control of his emotions. How angry can he get when you compare him? So tell him you have to study well for your own good, for getting that sense of thrill and excitement, not because the neighboring boy is scoring 100 out of 100. Okay, so this is what you need to be very careful about when you are communicating with the adolescent. We all get angry. That's a very normal thing. And I think that's a very normal emotion. But how do we express anger? So you've always told your adolescent to keep the house clean, right? And you come back after a very busy day in your office or in your clinic, and you find the house is really dirty, especially the adolescent's room. And you're very angry. And you say, I'm so disgusted with you. I wish I had never had you. You're such a trouble to me. That hurts the adolescent. Remember, your words can actually destroy your relationship. So what do? The first thing you do is say what happened. I came back from the office today, or I came back from the clinic, and I saw that your room was in a mess. Don't say you don't care for me, you don't love me, you never keep your room clean, you are so disorganized, you're so lazy. The moment you label the adolescent lazy, why should he change? If you already said that you have judged me as lazy, why should I do any work for that matter? So say what happened. The second thing is, say how you felt. I came back after a busy day and I saw the room dirty. I felt very upset. May I know what was the reason that you could not clean your room? That is the second part of it. And then say, if you would clean your room every day, it would make the house look so beautiful. But yes, I understand that today you had fever and that was the reason why you could not clean your room. So see, you have expressed yourself. Say what happened, say how you felt, say what you want the other person to do, and say how will it make a difference to you and to your house. Yet you have asked also what happened. So this is the way you express your anger. When you manage your anger well, you improve your relationship. The adolescent understands you better and you understand the adolescent better. Remember, in the adolescent phase, the advantage is their vocabulary and their cognition. So in comparison to the childhood phase, they are able to speak better. So the spelling of communication in the adolescent period is LISTENING, and that is listening. We often talk so much that we actually never pay attention to what the adolescent is speaking, which is important. I gave you two examples. Coming back from the grocery store, not keeping the room clean. Grocery store because there was a puncture, and not keeping the room clean because the adolescent had fever. Unless we listen to them, how will we know their challenges? Right? So what do we need to do? Active listening. And what is active listening? Paying attention to the adolescent. If you are reading your mobile all the time, how are you going to pay attention to the adolescent? When you're talking to the adolescent, keep your mobile aside and allow the adolescent to speak. And in between say, Acha, phir kya hua? Oh, puncture ho gaya tire. Aapko kaisa laga? तो आपको बहुत खराब लगा उस समय और आपको लगा कि मम्मी शायद गुस्सा करेगी कि आप लेट हो जाओगे. So what are you doing here? You are reflecting emotions and you are reflecting what the adolescent is saying to confirm that what you have understood is right or not. And then the adolescent say, नहीं नहीं मम्मी मुझे पता था कि आप थोड़ा तो गुस्सा होगे पर इतना ज्यादा नहीं, पर मुझे फिक्र था कि मैं कैसे उसको इतना अप है घर जाने में, कैसे अपने साइकिल को पुश करूंगा. So, you know, what was the adolescent's worry? You could understand because you listened to it. And in the end, you summarize. So these are some of the key things of communication which we must take care. Our non-verbal communication is as important as a verbal communication. So if you're looking at your watch, if you're looking at your phone while talking to the adolescent is not interested in talking to you. And so the other way also it works. So when you're talking, have both your phones down, because adolescents also have phones and they could be also looking at it. Yes, Seema.
Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, what about the situation when the adolescent is lying? Like, we expect ki this is the straight situation where the adolescent is like, you feel ki he's very nice and he has his own problem and therefore like probably he could not communicate it on time. But what if you know that he's lying and most of the time he's lying?
So can you give me a situation in which, you know, you felt that the adolescent who was in your connection was lying, and then I could kind of understand it better. I think the most common situation which I face in clinical practice and what parents come and tell me is lying about marks or not showing their answer paper because they have not scored well. This is the very common thing, and the question paper, the answer paper would have been given to the, you know, for getting the signature of the parent, but they just lie. No, the teacher will give me, you know, because they've scored less, right? So in my clinical practice, that is the most common situation when they lie. So if I'm going to take from that, I usually ask the parent, if the adolescent was to show you the low marks, how have you reacted to the adolescent? Remember, adolescent, the communication with the adolescent, the bonding with the adolescent actually starts in the peri-conception period. When you decide to have a child, that's the time when your bonding and communication with your child begins. So it's not in the adolescent period alone that you're establishing this communication. When you're carrying the child, how do the parents react to the baby? How well is the mother looked after? How well is the marital relationship? This matters. And this matters to how the adolescent will communicate with you later. Over when the child is born in the first 2 years, how is the attachment pattern? That also has great implications on communication, right? So if the adolescent has seen you in the childhood, when he makes a mistake and you hit him, and you, without asking for a reason, you always blame him and you punish him. And some of the punishments can be very fierce. It may be belting. It may be also making them stand out of the house for the whole night. And if an adolescent has already experienced this trauma in childhood, definitely 100% he's going to lie. I can tell you that. But if as a parent, you have responded to the so-called, I'll put it in quotes, the mistakes that he does, or when he does not come up to your expectation in a sensitive manner, telling him that, yes, what you probably did was wrong, but let us just get together, sit together to improve on what has happened. So in childhood, if you have been partnering with the child and saying, yes, once in a while you do score low marks, let us sit together and see what went wrong and how could we improve. If that is your approach, the adolescent will not lie. Let me tell you. Having said this, I also must tell you, we all know that there are children with conduct disorders, with oppositional defiant disorders, with ADHD. These are the child with impulse control disorders, and lying may be one of the clinical characteristics, along with being very, very defiant, very hyperactive, difficult to control, aggressive to all the people around them, including their teachers, their friends. So if these are the characteristics, then it's altogether a different ball game. And then our approach will have to be very different.
Excellent, ma'am. Very nice way you have explained. So it's all really parenting that matters and how you communicate, the assertive communication. So ma'am, moving on to the next question. A girl adolescent is average in her studies and another extrovert child asks others in the class not to do friendship and teases this girl for clothes, for appearance, and for studies. This child understands that she cannot force her parents for new thing every time and trouble them. She does not like going to school. Her mother often stays unwell. Her mother still brings her child to the doctor. How can we help this child?
Yes. So, the first thing to do is to appreciate the mother coming to you with these problems. It's not often that, a parent would come and discuss such things with a pediatrician. So I would say, full marks to the pediatrician for having such a good rapport with the family, that the family considers you as somebody very close and a professional who would help. So that is point number one. The second point is when you're talking to the mother, right? And the mother says, I have an issue with my daughter. Sometimes it is good to have a separate interview with the mother so that she does not speak, I can say, too badly about the daughter in her presence, and she can freely kind of discuss her issues with you. Remember, you told me the mother had a health issue, right? So the mother may have even, I know some mothers who have cancer and who hide it from their children, right? They don't want their children to be exposed to this. So it's a very personal decision, though as a clinician, I would say, share it so the children know about it. If they come to know later, they may be very kind of dejected and disappointed, but it's a personal decision. So if the mother is unwell and she feels that something wrong is with the daughter, it's a good idea to have a separate appointment with the mother so that she can share with you all that is there. The third thing to remember as a clinician is that you must also have a separate interview with the child, right? It's very, very important in privacy, telling the limits of confidentiality, to discuss with the child what exactly is happening. Because sometimes you'll be surprised to know the version with the parents share may be very different or sometimes very similar to what the child is feeling. So I would assume for some time that you have interviewed the mother, you have interviewed the child, and both feel the same way. So I can understand there are two stressors here. One is socio-economic condition of the family, which is not very well to do. And so there is the social comparison. Other people in the class have some things, she doesn't have it. That is one. And the second stressor, which I can see, is the mother being unwell, right? So these are two stressors which this child has to cope with. Having said this, I would also like to know, how has been the parenting in childhood? Has it been, were they always of the low middle class maybe? Or were they rich once upon a time and they were giving a lot of things and they had some financial loss and now they're not able to give these things to the child? So talking to the child, and you could be a negotiator here as a clinician about what are the essential needs and wants and what are the other things which we might love to have, but at the moment they're too expensive to get. So first thing is making the child introspect and understand that. And you would say probably this child is an adolescent, right? So maybe around 13 to 14 years, and they do well when you give them the understanding that you cannot get this thing because of this. And she already has that understanding that I don't want to ask my parents because they may feel the financial crunch of it. What happens with adolescents is sometimes their thinking is very limited and saying, this is the peer group that I want to be. This is the rich peer group that I want to be with. At this point of time, as a physician, can you make them explore about other peers who may not be as rich as this rich peer group, and how associating with them rather than being teased and bullied by this peer group? The second point to remember is, what are the kind of the qualities of a good friend? Would a good friend tease you, bully you just because you don't have some things? If this does not fit into a good quality of your friend, probably it's better to stay away, right? And form a new peer group. So these are some of the ideas. Remember, when you're counseling, you have to give a menu of options. Sometimes even ask the adolescent also, what do you feel? Sometimes the adolescent would say, I don't like this class at all. I want to change my section. All the people are teasing me and bullying me. Give the adolescent the pros and cons of changing that section, of talking to the teacher, talking to the parent about it. And I can also tell you, seeing the effects of bullying, sometimes because of intense bullying, you may even need to change the school, which is worth it. We also know that because of bullying and ragging, some of the young people have committed suicide. So I would say be in touch with your adolescent and give them the options, give them the scaffolding to choose the right kind of option and try it out. If it is not successful, you may have to give some radical suggestions. The mother definitely needs healthcare, because I have seen so many instances where the mother and father have mental disorders, and when they have been referred to an appropriate clinician and they have been treated, the whole environment of the house changes. So as a pediatrician, as an adolescent health specialist, the whole family is under your care and you have to ensure health for all.
Yes, ma'am. A similar scenario, like what you mentioned, it is better that the child should find the right peer and a right friend rather than being bullied. But the issue is, ma'am, if the child is low in academic performance and he and not allowing parents to help, and this question has come from Dr. Santosh Jemnani, sir. If low academic performance is there and not allowing parents to help, and neither self-efforts for study, giving time to computer. Like in such a situation, the child is lagging behind academically. So in such situation, the peers are teasing. So how can like this child be counseled, ma'am?
Okay. Okay. Now, so I can also say even low academic performance, it hurts the self-esteem and the self-worth of the child, because we as a society, we kind of judge each child by the academic performance alone. We never say you're a very generous child, you're such a kind child, you're such a helping child. We always try to judge by the marks. How much percentage? Oh, 40%. You will never survive in this world. You are doomed. You will be asking for alms. You become a beggar. This is the kind of way we talk to our children, which can be absolutely devastating to the child, and it's extremely discouraging.
Can I request everyone to kindly mute their mic? Yogesh, can you do that? Yogesh, can you do that? Juventus?
पर्दल सर,
Yes.
म्यूट कर लो अपने आप को, आपकी आवाज बहुत आ रही है, डिस्टर्बेंस हो रहा है।
मेरी आवाज?
हाँ,
मैं तो चुपचाप बैठा हूँ यार।
नहीं लेकिन आ रही है, आप अपने को म्यूट करो ना सर।
देखो
Seema, I think you can mute everybody. You are the host, so you can do that, I think.
Okay, ma'am.
A girl is getting conscious so much on her looks.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Moving on to the next question.
Okay, so I'll just say another thing about this learning problem, right?
Yeah.
Now you have to ask the child what is his ambition, right? Let me give you an example. This is a real case. So I had this child who was having a learning problem and he refused to go to school. And I asked him what was the issue. He said, yes, everybody makes fun of me because I'm not good in studies. And doctor, after all, I want to become a pujari in the temple. My father is a pujari. I'm going to take up his profession. Why do I need to go to school? You know, was his question legitimate enough? And then I told him, you know, you have to use the technique of what we call motivational interviewing. When you have to motivate somebody to improve on their learning or to go to school, when they are motivated not to go to school, right? So then I asked him, oh, I'm very happy that you become a pujari, but I'm sure as a pujari, you're going to earn a lot of money and you're going to put that in the bank. And you know how banks can cheat you if you don't know how to calculate the simple interest and the compound interest. So I think you need the basic knowledge to at least go through that. So I think 10th standard would give you at least that basic knowledge. And you know, it sounds so simple, but believe it or not, sometimes simple things can really change the life of another person, right? And he said, okay, ma'am, just because you said that, I'll appear for my 10th standard, right? And he passed his 10th standard with 50% marks. He went on to do his 11th and 12th standard. He passed his 12th standard with 40% marks. Yes, he had a learning problem. And yes, he became a pujari. And I get to see his son now. And he says, I passed my 12th standard only because of me. And yes, the banks are not fooling him. And he laughs at the reason that I gave him at that time to do his 10th standard. So these are the things which you need to do when you motivate somebody. Just told them you have to study because it is good for you. Why is it good? What is the USP? Why is it good? What is the unique selling proposition that you're giving? So try to act as a sales manager. You're selling the product of education. You're selling the product of schooling, and it should be relevant to the adolescent that you're addressing.
Right, ma'am. True. Yes, ma'am. Moving on to the next question. A girl is getting conscious so much on her looks that she spends hours together getting ready and taking selfies. Her studies are getting affected. Her mother is busy but still explains her, but she says this gives her happiness. Her mother comes to you because she's again bothered, like she spends long hours in this. So like, How can we help this, Mara?
Yes. So you would definitely come to a conclusion and say, hey, she's a gone case. She's addicted to her mobile. She's addicted to how she looks. But have we gone into the history? I had a very similar case, and this child was sexually abused by her grandfather, by her brother, and she hated herself. She always wore big coats. She hated her body. Even though it was summer, she used to cover her body, wear these coats, and keep on putting selfies on the internet because she felt that was one place where she was getting the likes and validation. And otherwise, other people, she felt everybody was looking at her all the time and that people will hurt her, right? So she found that safety in the online world. So before we kind of even make a diagnosis of what it is, we have to understand the reason why is she taking so many selfies. And that will only come when you talk to the child in privacy and confidentiality. Having said that, we say more than 6 selfies may indicate a disorder called selfitis, or it is maybe a sign of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, or it may be a sign of body dysmorphic disorder, which is a form of OCD, right? So they get so much obsessed with how they look that they keep on taking selfies. And what makes me think of OCD or a body dysmorphic disorder as a diagnosis here, because her taking selfies is interfering with the activities of daily living. And what are those activities? That is her performance in school, probably talking to her parents, even talking to her friends. So she's totally withdrawn and she's just obsessed with just taking selfies. So if there is a change in behavior or loss of interest in activities which were previously enjoyed, maybe she was a great badminton player, but she stopped that and she's just going on taking selfies. And this is persisting for more than 2 weeks and interfering with activities of daily living and increasing in intensity, you have to think of a mental disorder here. And then that is how you would assess, and probably if you have the expertise, this is a case which is for cognitive behavior therapy, and if it is a severe OCD, they would also require medication. So either you can partner with the psychiatrist and the psychologist, or if you have the expertise, you can manage these cases yourself.
Great, ma'am. Great explanations. Yeah, moving ahead, ma'am. An adolescent is busy seeing Instagram, YouTube, Facebook for long hours. He feels he is addicted. He himself feels he is addicted. He doesn't want to spend time with parents. The same, but with media, ma'am. His colony does not have children of his age group. Parents are bothered about his habit as he escapes his work and timetable. How can a pediatrician help this child?
So again, a very excellent case. And again, as I said before, it requires more history taking. And I would just discuss a similar, very similar case when this child came to me and I talked to them about the pros and cons of using the media and how the media was affecting his life, right? So he actually wrote it down. So it is like a balance. वो तराजू रहता है ना, तो आपको कौन सा पलड़ा भारी है और आप बिहेवियर चेंज करोगे कि नहीं. तो जब आपको ऐसे बात करनी है तो आपको हमेशा adolescent को बोलना चाहिए reasons for using the media, reasons for what will be the advantages for if I don't use the media. So when we were listing down, he listed out improved relationship with my parents, improved relationship with my friends, because I've stopped going out, though my friends stay a little far away. Previously, I used to cycle down, right? He also said less time for physical activity, more time for studies, and I blame the media for a fall in academic performance. So he said, doctor, in front of you, I'm going to give my phone to my mother. My final exams are just 2 months away. And I promise to you that I'm going to give my phone. He gave the phone to his mother. And then he started crying. I was kind of very shocked at that, And he said, doctor, if you don't mind, I want to talk to you alone for some time. I said, sure. And I requested his mother to, go out. And he said, doctor, do you know, when I'm giving away my mobile, I'm giving away the only source of happiness in my life. My life is so terrible at home, and especially during the lockdown, because my parents fight with each other the whole day long. And I go on to Insta and I go on to this to shut off their fights. It is so distressing, doctor. They're even violent with each other, you know. So this was the story of this young man. How are you going to help him? And then, though abstinence is what we want, but then we are also happy with a harm reduction. Can you reduce your media use from 14 hours to 13 and a half hours, then to 12 hours, then to 12 and a half hours, a slow weaning of the media? Well, the story goes like this, that he could not reduce his media use, and the minimum that he came down from nearly 15 hours to just 6 hours. He finally did pass his 10th standard, and he put his foot down that I'm not going to stay in this environment. And he went into a boarding school ultimately, and he's doing well there. So, you know, how things can really alter and how we can get judgmental about people without actually listening to the whole story. And I'd already spent more than 3 hours with this adolescent alone. And that is the time he never told me about the fights of his parents. And when the phone was given away, that's the time he came up with it. So you always have to be alert. You don't know in adolescent medicine, there would be some interesting turns which you have to be ready for.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, moving on to the next question. 3 sets of questions are there. Like these are some of the common cases which we have come across. So, a late adolescent drinks with his father, but mother dislikes this. She wants her child to concentrate on the career. She brings the child to you. Her husband is not cooperative. This is situation 1. The second situation, father is alcoholic, beats up his wife frequently, but wife continues to stay with him for the sake of her family and children. Her adolescent rather, watches this, but mother always overprotects her husband in front of him. This adolescent is now so confused regarding their right behavior, and he is very much puzzled. He seeks help with his mother. So now how can we deal in such cases?
Okay, so
one more case, ma'am, pertaining to this only. A boy often sees another boy taking alcohol in school and often passes bad comments to his peers. No one says a word against this boy as he's from an affluent and influential society. But this boy gets distracted by the comments and the misbehavior of that boy. He often ignores, but now he's getting distracted from his studies. Now he dislikes his school, his teacher, and his mates. He doesn't want to share with his father. Mother notices this, rather probably he has discussed, and now she comes with a child to you.
Okay, Seema. So from what I understood, the first 2 cases is an alcohol problem in the house, and the third case is an alcohol issue in the school, and the consequences of that on this child who is probably resisting the use of alcohol. Yeah. So now, before I even talk about these cases, I must share with you that alcohol is next to caffeine is the most common drug being used by adolescents in India, and almost around 1.8% use alcohol. Adolescents, right? You may say, oh, 1.8% is too less, but remember, we have the largest adolescent population in the world, in our country, and that comes to around 256 million. So I would allow you to do the maths and see how many of the adolescents use alcohol, and it's both boys and girls. Let me be very clear about that. Well, why are we so kind of, as adolescent health specialists, say a strict no to alcohol? Because research has proven, and this is a fantastic article which came in Lancet and said that alcohol use is the number 2 risk factor to the health of young people between 10 to 24. And do you know which is the first risk factor? No surprises here, iron deficiency anemia. Okay, so alcohol is way up there as a risk factor to health. So what does alcohol do? We all are very familiar with what alcohol does to the body and how it affects the body and the mind. But one thing which I need to reinforce here when you're talking to adolescents about alcohol or drug use is the effect of drugs and alcohol on the brain. Because you know that the adolescent brain is a work in progress. It is still under construction. Neuronal connections are being tightened, hardwired for life. The connections which are being used and the connections which are not being used are getting pruned off. And adolescent brain is very, very flexible until the age of around 24 years or so, when the brain gets relatively hardwired. But we also know by science that neuronal plasticity actually extends over the entire lifespan. But the plasticity is maximum in the first 2 years and probably the first 8 years when we talk about early childhood intervention and development, right? And also in the adolescent period. So the alcohol acts as a neurotoxin. It can disturb the development of the brain. Where does it act? It acts on the hippocampus, the memory center. And research has shown that those adolescents who use alcohol have a smaller hippocampus and impaired memory. Where does alcohol act? It acts on the prefrontal cortex. And as I've been telling again and again, prefrontal cortex is the seat of judgment and control of emotions. So imagine if the prefrontal cortex gets damaged in the adolescent period, it would mean impaired judgment, poor impulse control, lifelong. The third thing where alcohol acts is it hijacks the reward center of the brain. So what happens here? When it hijacks the reward center, the adolescent does not get happiness from any of his academic or extra academic achievements. He just gets the dopamine kick from alcohol or drugs. So what happens now is the use of alcohol in adolescence will lead to a lifelong addiction because the amygdala is hijacked, the prefrontal cortex is damaged, and also poor scholastic performance, poor memory. So what we need to tell the adolescent is that these are the effects of starting alcohol in adolescence. But the adolescents often ask me, is it okay to drink as an adult? It's a very popular question which they ask me. When I become 20 and 24, you said, okay, don't drink before that. Is it okay? I would then say, as a doctor, I would say alcohol at no age is good for health. But then you will be an adult and you know that there are some people who are social drinkers and their judgment does not get impaired and they have it as a recreation. And I would allow you to make your own decisions in adulthood because I believe with the knowledge that I have shared with you, you will make the right kind of decision for yourself. Okay, so this is what is my take with them. So having understood this, now coming to the first case, drinking at home, right? Now, what is the thing with drinking at home? You already know that adolescents have a poor impulse control because their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. And if alcohol is easily available, even though I have told the adolescent that how it damages the brain because it is easily available and the father is a role model, the adolescent is to pick up the glass and the father says, tu to bada ho gaya hai, ab to tu mera yaar hai, mera beta nahi hai. And that is what is the pitfall here because the father doesn't know that he's pushing his son into addiction. He is causing an impairment of the neuronal activity in the brain. So what do we do now? The question is, we talk to the mother, we ask the mother, can you get the father to me and I want to have a one-on-one talk? The father may refuse. Can you give some websites which tell about the effect of alcohol on the brain? And let me share with you the NIDA website. the National Institute of Drug Abuse of USA has a fantastic information available in a very simple manner for parents and adolescents both. So this is a website that you can share, and you can give the suggestion and the invite to the father to have a look at the website and read it. Right? If you have a good rapport with the family, it's also a good idea to pick up the phone and talk to the father without putting him down and without saying, okay, that's a habit for you, but this is what it can do to the adolescent. Right? So you have to kind of do partnership with the adolescent, with the family. At the same time, be careful to look for the stressors in the adolescent's life. For example, if there's a break in a relationship, or if the adolescent is not doing well in school, or if the adolescent does not like his body, their body image problems, this is the adolescent who would go to alcohol for seeking relief and escape from his stressors. So you have to be very, very careful while you are helping this adolescent. And remember, don't hurt anybody in the process, because you can't be with the adolescent 24 hours in a day. It's the parents, and you need to partner with the parents and convince the parents about how alcohol use in adolescents can be damaging. Coming to the second case. Now, this is a parent with an alcohol use disorder who is getting very violent with the mother. When we talk about such a case, remember, whatever may be the situation, adolescent safety is of paramount importance. When the father is under the effect of alcohol, is he hitting the adolescent? Is something which you have to investigate. Is the adolescent and the mother getting beaten up? What does the adolescent think about this? And as you said, Seema, he's confused that why is his mother supporting his father when he's not under the influence of alcohol and saying it's okay to be beaten up, right? Yes. So these are some of the issues which are difficult and complex, but you can tell the adolescent that as an adult, she has the right to live the life which she wants, right? And you can also say, I know you are hurt by what is happening to your mother. Let me talk to her more about it. Maybe we can get some help from for your father as well as support for your mother. So you should know which are the government helplines available for both the mother as well as for the father. So this is another thing to do. The third thing is, if the adolescent safety is compromised, if the adolescent is getting abused, and let me tell you this, witnessing intimate partner violence or witnessing violence between parents is also a form of child abuse, right? Apart from the classic, we know physical, we know about sexual, we know about emotional, even this is a form of child abuse. And child safety, not only the physical safety, but emotional safety is also important. So when you feel that is compromised, can you suggest to the family to shift the adolescent to another place? Maybe with the extended family, maybe with the grandparents, maybe with the uncle, but remember, you have no right to take this decision on the behalf of the adolescent. Ask the adolescent, who is the most trustworthy adult in your life, in your family, And again, partner with the adolescent before you suggest to the adolescent to shift. Can you shift the adolescent, like I said, to a hostel? Again, partnering with the adolescent to keep the adolescent safe emotionally. The third option would be to refer this child to the child welfare committee or to make a complaint to the child line, where this child could be actually put into an institution and then given for foster care. So these are the different, modalities that you have when child safety is compromised. Coming to the last case, it is a case when everybody is drinking and I am the only one who's not drinking as in a peer group, and I feel terrible. And if you look at this case very carefully, the child has become withdrawn, does not want to go to school, and is the child gone into depression? Is another thing which we have to kind of look into and think, is peer exclusion the only cause or is there something else? So we have to again do counseling for the such child and say, it's okay to stand for your value system. You are, after all, having so many other peers where you are a good dancer, where you're a good sports person. So it is only one of the peers whom you don't like. And I agree with you that alcohol use in this age is not the right thing to do. And you need not get carried away by the peer. I'm so proud of you. Right? So just giving those reassuring statements from the family, from the mother, from the physician would make a difference. Of course, we have to look into depression and thereby the management later in this case.
Ma'am, I think already we have exceeded the time limit. Yeah, Yogesh, do we have time?
Yeah, madam. Yeah, you can continue, madam.
Okay, thank you so much.
Madam, excellent. You are giving excellent explanations in all three cases. Very different, but very nice. Very
Thank
nice.
you, sir.
Practical, yeah, ma'am. Actually, there are situations. One of the parent has come to me with a similar history, and then I thought, ki, how should I move? So rather, I overlooked that because even I didn't know the answer for this. Because to indulge in somebody's family is a difficult issue until and unless you know fully.
Yes.
Ma'am, one question: why an adolescent commits suicide, and how we as a pediatrician can help prevent this?
So you all know that suicide is a multifactorial causes are there. So it is not just that an adolescent failed in an exam or had a break in a relationship and just decided to commit suicide. Well, there are many factors which contribute to any adolescent committing suicide. Having said that, I would also tell you what the science says. The science says that 90% of the adolescent suicides are impulsive. And I'm sure you understand very, very clearly now why are adolescent suicides impulsive? Because their prefrontal cortex is still not mature. तो किसी ने भी बोल दिया तो गधा है, the adolescent feels terrible and says, अरे मैं तो सबसे worst जना हूँ इस world पे, and he might think of committing suicide. So we have to be very careful with the words that we use with the adolescent. And gada is something which we use very casually, isn't it? So I must also say that each adolescent is unique and so is each family. So how a particular adolescent perceives a particular comment is also dependent on genetics. So that's also a very important factor. Let me share with you quickly a case. A father got a 14-year-old with cut marks on her forearm. And this adolescent said, "Doctor, do you know what my father did? He caught me bunking school and going for a movie, and he got me home with my friend, and he screamed and shouted at me in front of my friends. And that is why I cut myself. I felt so, I hated myself. I wanted to punish myself, and I also wanted to punish my father because I know my father will feel worse when he sees the blood." So as I was counseling this child, I also had a talk with the parent, which I often do. And the parent, to my surprise, said, "Doctor, do you know a similar incident happened when I was in college? And my father caught me and I did the same thing." So, you know, coping with stress is also genetic. So when we think about suicide, have we taught the adolescent alternate ways of coping with stress, though genetically the adolescent may be prone to self-harm? So one I said was a genetic cause. The second cause could be a problem in the individual. A child is not doing well in studies, and that is one of the most common causes. A child's medical disorder, like for example, it could be a disability, it could be autism, it could be even ADHD, which has not been properly treated. It could be even epilepsy or even diabetes mellitus or even pimples on the face. Do you know? Acne, if it is not treated, can also lead to suicide. So there can be these individual causes. There can be problems in the family, which we already discussed, an alcohol use disorder in the family, a parent with a mental disorder, a parent who's very abusive. This can also push the adolescent to suicide. Also, how the teachers treat the adolescent in school. Is there any bullying in the school? This can also lead to suicide. What about the community? How does the community react when there is a child with sexual abuse? Do they blame the child? That can also lead to suicide. Are there enough places to give counseling for the child? That can also lead to suicide, because there's nobody where the child can go to. And we have seen this happening very, 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 just a few days ago with her colleague, where her husband herself was a psychiatrist, but she decided not to speak about it, right? So even adolescents do the same thing, right? So because we don't have the culture of children speaking up, children are meant to be seen, not heard, is the culture that we come from, right? Only if we allowed our children to speak and we could listen to them, many of these things could be prevented. Having said this, what is the most solid prevention or evidence-based prevention for suicide? And not only for adolescent suicide, but all suicide, is restriction of the means of committing suicide. In our country, organophosphorus poisoning is one of the most common causes of suicide, not only in adolescents, but also in adults. Most of the rural adolescents, in fact, come to medical colleges with organophosphorus poisoning. Increasing the price, regulating the sale of organophosphorus insecticides and pesticides is probably a powerful method to decrease suicides. So restricting the means, apart from giving life skill education classes, building up resilience in schools and colleges, also to pick up mental disorders, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, eating disorder, schizophrenia, alcohol use disorder can all lead to suicide, and they need help. And making sure that after you have given emergency management to an organophosphorus poisoning in your hospital, are you following the chain of care? Why did the adolescent commit suicide? What was the stressor? Did you help the adolescent or not? Now, coming to a clinical scenario, if you have an adolescent coming to you with either a suicidal attempt, either as an inpatient or as an outpatient, number one thing which you have to remember is to partner with a psychiatrist. Extremely important, because we as pediatricians do not have so much of expertise to manage such cases. Having said that, I also know many cases do not reach a psychiatrist, especially whom we see in outpatient. So when you have a child coming to in an inpatient scenario, it's probably easier to refer to a psychiatrist. But in an outpatient scenario, somebody comes with slashed wrists. What do? How do you respond? Apart from taking a HEADS psychosocial history in detail. So what does HEADS stand for? HEADS is an acronym which stands for history taking in the domain of the home. Whom do you stay with? How is your relationship with your parents? In the domain of education, what is your ambition for life? How are you doing in school? How is your relationship with your schools and teachers? Another E is your eating habits. Not only the eating habits and the diet, how do you feel when you look at yourself in the mirror to find out body image issues? Another A stands for activities. How do you spend your time? What do you go to the media for? For how many hours are you on the media? How is the media interfering with your life? How many hours do you sleep? And how much of physical activity do you indulge in? Another D. So I'm talking about an acronym. So D stands for drug use. What do you think about drug use? Do any of your friends use drugs? So these are the questions to be asked. One S stands for suicide. And then how do you ask for suicide? There are times when young people don't feel things are going the right way. And some people do think of ending their life. Has this thought ever crossed your mind? Unless you ask, how will you know about suicidal intent? And yes, if this thought crossed your mind, do you have a plan? Do you think you will execute that plan? The moment the adolescent says, I'm going to execute the plan and I have a plan, remember it is high risk. You may even have to admit this adolescent in interest of the safety. Coming to rest of the S's, the rest of the S's stand for sexuality issues and safety issues. So this is a very comprehensive history which we take for all adolescents to understand not only what are the stresses, but what are the strengths of the adolescent. I want to become a painter and I cut my hand. So you think you're going to become a very good painter. So you have self-worth. You can become, after all, you're only 14 now and you have a lot of potential in you. So when you're counseling this child, when you refer to a psychiatrist, remember, before you send the child for a referral, you must build hope. That is one thing which you have to do. Second thing is make a safety plan. Ask the adolescent to write down, if I get self-harming thoughts again, what am I going to do? Am I going to call my father? Am I going to call my grandmother? Am I going to listen to music? Am I going to listen to probably my mobile, or maybe even ring me up? So remember to give your phone number to the adolescent, make a safety plan and say, I am always there for you. And what is your motivation to live is another thing which you need to write down. The third thing which you need to do is to tell the parent to be calm, composed, not to leave the adolescent alone. If the adolescent has used a blade, remember to tell the parent not to have any knives in the adolescent's room, and not to even remove the locks of the doors, so that the adolescent cannot lock the door and harm himself. So these are some of the things which you need to do before the adolescent leaves your clinic in a case there is a suicidal attempt or a suicidal intent. But if there is a plan, remember, you have to admit, if the adolescent has a mental disorder and a past history of suicide attempt, again, it is high risk. You may even have to admit and seek emergency psychiatric referral. And there are medico-legal implications. So be careful to document the case, document the referral, document that you have talked to the psychiatrist. Please remember to document all these, because later you could land into problems if you don't do the documentation well.
Yes, ma'am. Just the last question, ma'am. So there are many, there might be questions in the chat box, ma'am, then we will discuss. So there are many more such cases. What a parent and a family can give to his child. How can parents make a congenial atmosphere and better adaptive values to their children? That is important. Like we always stress on adolescents, but how should be a family atmosphere be, or how should the atmosphere we can create in a way that the adolescent is healthy, yeah, in every aspect?
So if you ask me to answer it in just one sentence, I would say have a fun-filled atmosphere at home. As adolescents grow older, we often become very serious, and so do the adolescents. But remember, after all, the adolescent is a child. The more fun you have with your adolescent, the more he's going to bond with you, the more he's going to listen to you. And remember, as parents, your harmony matters. Marital harmony matters. Adolescent is looking at you very, very carefully, and he is developing a foundation for relationships in the future. So remember that, point number 2. And I would tell parents, please have some me time. Look after your physical and mental health. Don't feel that you have to do keep everybody in the house happy. And I would especially say for the mothers, they take all the load and say, I am responsible for the whole family. No, everybody is responsible for themselves, and you have the biggest responsibility to yourself. So remember to take care of yourself, pamper yourself first, have that 15 minutes of me time every day. You will be happy, adolescent will be happy. As far as the adolescent goes, once you have taken care of this warm, nurturing environment, remember to monitor the adolescent, do effective communication, to have positive discipline, follow very positive discipline techniques, always be there for the adolescent, give unconditional love. If you score 100%, I will love you and even present you with a mobile. If you score 0%, I will throw you out of the house. This is conditional love. So remember to love your adolescent unconditionally. Remember, the brain is still growing. There's a lot of potential for the adolescent. Even if he has scored 0%, he can probably score 100% in the next exam. So keep that hope alive, and always remember to take your adolescent for an annual health checkup. to your pediatrician. Remember to complete the vaccination, and remember to reach out to your pediatrician if there are any problems in behavior, changes in interest, which last over more than 2 weeks. So this is in brief, I would request from all the parents to do while they look after their adolescents.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Dr. Umesh Khurana sir has commented, like, thanks a lot for many tips to manage adolescent issues. God bless you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm blessed that you being such a senior person. So I feel so happy today that you are here and you have given me your blessings. Thank you very much, sir.
Ma'am, most of the messages are just like, they all enjoyed it. It was an excellent discussion, and like, so mostly excellent communication, excellent approach you have told, the techniques you have explained, like people loved the talk. Now I would like Dr. Arvind Savan sir, would you like to please comment anything, or then?
It is the excellent session, definitely. And definitely small actions by many people working together can create a great change in the community. So अगर हम लोग थोड़ा कुछ करते रहेंगे तो definitely it will create great change. Very good session, madam. Very nice, informative as well. If Dr. Satyen Yani or Dr. Motwani is there, ask them to convey the thanks to ma'am. And Dr. Satyen, are you there?
Dr. Arun Agrawal sir is there, sir, and I couldn't see Dr. Satyen Gyani sir.
I just saw him.
Or
Dr. Arun, are you there?
सर यस
Yeah.
हाँ, yes, बोलिए कुछ. मैडम को धन्यवाद
बहुत ही
दीजिए.
बढ़िया सेशन था सर. I'm thankful to ma'am for bringing out all the important aspect of adolescent, and being a father of 2 adolescent or 3 adolescent now, I really understand what are the things that are going in their mind and why they are reacting such. It was a great insight to all the problems that to adolescent care, and I hope that being a parent to an adolescent, I think it will help me in better parenting for my kids. Thank you, ma'am, for a wonderful session. And I'm thankful to all the
Madam, I learned
participants who are
3 things
there
today.
tonight attending this. Yes, sir.
Ma'am, I learned 3 things today.
Yes, sir.
Assertive communication, qualitative parenting, and motivational interview. All these are very important, and always be positive with your adolescent, with your kids. Thank you very much for a very
Thank you,
nice,
sir.
informative session.
Thank you very much, sir.
it was a real nice session, ma'am. With these words, on behalf of Chhattisgarh Adolescent Health Academy and Durgala Academy of Pediatric, I would like to thank our speaker, Dr. Preeti Galgali, madam, for sparing her valuable time and have been enlightening us on various aspects of adolescent problems. She has given very useful tips on counseling and given us a foresight. And we also, being the parents, should have learned a lot from her. I thank all the esteemed members of Chhattisgarh who have been the part of this event today. I thank Juventus, especially Yogesh Joshi, who has given us this digital platform and has been kind enough to have arranged all program for us today. So I thank each and everyone who is present over here. With these words, would Yogesh Joshi, would you like to say anything, or otherwise we will close this session?
Madam, thank you so much for giving this opportunity. It is really a wonderful, you can say, session. I was listening, and even it is you can say, useful for us also.
Yeah.
We are also parents, so, and I have also a daughter of 12 years. So I just recorded the things and I will listen it again and again. And it would be more better if you directly interact with the adolescent children and all, like from schools and all. So
Absolutely, Yogesh. We are doing that.
I can.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are doing that. And I'm sure Chhattisgarh Adolescent Health Academy is also doing that. So I'm so happy. Sir was just sharing that with me, Arvind sir and Seema madam. So I hope, that light is carried on.
Exactly, madam.
Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Yogesh. I
Thank
must
you,
have
sir.
the last word here. I want to give a big round of applause to Seema. She was
Yes.
so wonderful, and it were her brilliant questions, and which really made the day. So thank you, Seema. I'm so grateful to you that you made me think, and you directed what to think. So thank you very much, Seema.
Yeah, ma'am. Just I tried, ma'am, from the cases which I have been looking around in the practice and while discussing with the patients. So I have compiled them all together, and then I put it in the form of questions and I've sent it to you. And when you have said, "Ki, these are fine, you can move ahead," then and you answered each and every question. And it was really wonderful.
Brilliant, Seema. That speaks for your dedication and commitment to adolescent care. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So with these words, we end this session. Thank you each and everyone who is over here. Thanks to Juventus once again.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
ma'am,
ma'am.
and our president, Dr.
Thanks,
Arvind
thanks,
Sabu,
thanks,
all the
Yogesh,
organizers.
for arranging this nice platform. And thanks, Madam Dr. Preeti,
Thank
given
you, sir.
a very good
And
time.
we have Dr. Malini ma'am with us. She's a very senior pediatrician, and she has been very active in the women wing. If Malini ma'am, can you please unmute and just comment upon ma'am? Malini ma'am, are you there?
No,
I
she
think-
left.
Yeah.
Gyani sir is joined. Gyani sir.
Okay.
सत्येन कुछ बोलोगे? हाँ हाँ
हाँ सर.
धन्यवाद दे दो मैडम को और प्रोग्राम को.
अरे
Yeah.
थैंक यू मैम. अभी ये सेशन रिकॉर्ड हो गया है. मैं एक बार फिर से इसको सुनूंगा रिकॉर्डिंग में. काफी ब्रेक से सुना, बट इस बार सच अ एंजॉयबल सेशन और इतना अच्छा लंबा चला है. वेरी फ्रूटफुल सेशन मैम. थैंक यू, एंड वी विल लाइक टू हैव सम मोर सेशंस लाइक दिस.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Gandhi.
And
Thank you.
1 hour session has been extended for 2 hours. So again,
Yeah.
this is Juventus on your
इतने
I planned
क्वेश्चंस
for
और
1
इतना
hour.
लंबा सेशन, इतने क्वेश्चंस और इतना लंबा सेशन चला मैम. रियली गुड.
Thank you. Thank you. I must thank Yogesh also. Thank you so much, Yogesh.
Yeah, for
My
extending
pleasure,
the
my
session for
pleasure.
us. Yeah.
थैंक यू.
Okay, thank you everyone. Let's
Thank you.
wind up, Seema.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Tomorrow I will share the recording. Right.
Okay, thank you so much.
And thank you, sir. Arvind sir, once again. Good night, sir. Good night, madam.
Good
Good
night.
night. Good night. Yeah. Good
Good
night.
night.